Imagine you're diving with friends off the wild and dangerous coast of Australia, exploring the reef in murky waters where shadows blend into darkness. You're captivated by the ocean's beauty, oblivious to a silent predator closing in. A great white shark, one of the ocean's deadliest hunters. Hungry and relentless, it closes in. This is what happened to Jonathan Lee, a 19-year-old university student on a dive trip that quickly turned into a nightmare. But for Jonathan, the worst was yet to come. The waters off Australia's coastline are breathtaking yet treacherous, home to some of the ocean's most dangerous predators. For Jonathan Lee, a 19-year-old university student and avid diver, a dive trip with friends would end in a struggle against one of nature's fiercest hunters, a nightmare lurking beneath the waves. It was Sunday, September 8, 1991. Jonathan, a second-year student at Adelaide University from the northeastern suburb of One Tree Hill, set off with 5 friends to dive off Alinga Beach, about 28 miles south of Adelaide. The day seemed perfect, clear skies, warm air, and gentle waves. The group eagerly loaded their gear into the boat and motored out to a popular dive spot called the Drop-Off, 1,150 feet offshore, where the shallow reef plunges sharply into dark, open waters. The friends laughed and chatted on the way out, eager to explore the marine life below. Once anchored at the reef's edge, the divers adjusted their masks and slipped into the cool blue. The reef was alive with movement. Sea stars and sea urchins clung to coral-covered rocks, and brightly colored fish darted through the hazy water. Snappers over 3 feet long and weighing up to 44 pounds shimmered in schools. They were easy prey for sharks. Where there were snappers, there were likely to be great white sharks in hot pursuit. Beyond the reef, the deep blue of the open ocean stretched, both alluring and ominous. Despite the perfect conditions above, the water was murky, with sand and silt stirred by the currents clouding visibility. These hazy waters created the perfect cover for a predator on the hunt, concealing its approach until the last possible moment. For the divers, this hidden danger was something they would discover in the most terrifying way. The divers moved cautiously through the murky waters, captivated by the coral and fish around them, unaware of the lurking predator nearby. After about 20 minutes, 4 of the group surfaced, climbing back onto the boat and pulling off their masks. They shared stories of the fish they'd encountered, laughing and settling onto the deck to watch for their friends who were still below. Jonathan and a few others remained in the water, too captivated to leave. Among them was 30-year-old Dave Roberts, an experienced diver who had accompanied Jonathan on many past dives. He lingered near the reef's edge, mesmerized by the scene unfolding around him, when he noticed something unusual. A low, thunderous rumble pulsed through the water, faint at first, yet growing louder. Dave turned, scanning the murky depths below, searching for the source. His gaze drifted downward, and there he spotted it, a massive shadow moving silently through the water. At first, he couldn't make out what he was seeing. As it swam closer, the shadow sharpened into view. A massive great white shark nearly 16 feet long was closing in near the reef, its movements powerful and precise. Dave remained motionless, watching the predator glide through the water, thrashing its tail as it neared the reef. In an instant, a reddish haze began to cloud the water, a chilling sign of violence unfolding just below. His heart pounded as he realized the horrifying truth. The shark wasn't feasting on fish. It had caught something or someone far larger. It was Jonathan. Frozen in terror, Dave gripped a nearby rock, making himself as small and silent as possible. He couldn't take his eyes off the shark, now mere feet away, its jaws clamped tightly around Jonathan's lifeless body. Silt and blood swirled in thick clouds, turning the water an inky, murky red. Dave stayed hidden, helpless to intervene, as the shark's powerful body twisted and thrashed, dragging Jonathan into the depths. The once lively reef had fallen into an eerie silence, as though even the smallest fish had retreated in fear. Moments later, the shark's frenzied movements began to slow and it started swimming away from the reef. Dave felt a flicker of hope that he might escape unnoticed. But then, as if in a final display of dominance, the shark turned back, swimming directly toward Dave's hiding spot. Dave held his breath, barely moving as the predator passed within 6 feet of him, close enough for him to see its cold, black eyes fixed ahead. The massive jaws were still clamped around Jonathan, whose body remained limp. With slow, deliberate strokes, the shark drifted past, oblivious to Dave as it disappeared into the open water, carrying Jonathan out of sight. The instant it was clear, Dave kicked upward with every ounce of strength, racing toward the surface. He broke through the waves, gasping for air, and yelled, "Shark! Shark!" His friends on board turned, their faces paling as they noticed pieces of gear floating in the water around him. Jonathan's fin, fragments of his wetsuit, and a damaged oxygen tank hose bobbing near the surface. Grim hints of what had just happened below. The friends hauled Dave onto the boat, his face pale, his breathing unsteady as he lay on the deck, reeling from what he had witnessed. Moments later, the remaining divers surfaced, scrambling onto the boat with the same look of shock. They, too, had seen the attack, frozen in place as the great white pinned Jonathan to the reef in a blur of blood and silt. Silently, the group gathered, watching fragments drift in the water. They fired a flare, the signal bright against the sky, a desperate call for help. Only silence replied, the vast ocean stretching calm and indifferent around them. Once they were back on shore, the group immediately contacted the authorities. A thorough search began, with boats combing the water and helicopters hovering overhead, scanning the depths for any sign of Jonathan. Hours passed, yielding only fragments of his dive suit, small pieces of neoprene drifting on the waves. As the search drew to a close, it became clear that the ocean had claimed him. For his friends, the drop-off, once a place of excitement and wonder, now held a haunting silence, the calm surface concealing the loss beneath. When you head out for a dive, you accept there's a risk. The ocean is home to powerful creatures, and deep waters hold unknown dangers. But when you step onto the shallow waters of a beach, would you ever expect the same kind of threat? Most assume it's safe, where sand and sunlight meet gentle waves, far from lurking predators. Yet, Kimon Basogno's tragic story proved just how wrong that assumption can be, showing that even in waist-deep waters, the ocean's most feared hunters can strike without warning. It was early morning in September 2022 at Plettenberg Bay, South Africa, and the beach was quiet, the sky painted in soft shades of dawn. The Western Cape's coastline looked picture-perfect. Turquoise waves rolled gently to shore, and soft sand stretched along the waterfront, still untouched by crowds. For many South Africans, it was a weekend of rest and celebration for Heritage Day, and families flocked to the beaches to enjoy the holiday. Among them were Kimon Basogno, her partner Diego Messi, and their 5-year-old daughter Luna. Kimon and Diego had driven 300 miles from Cape Town to enjoy a well-deserved vacation. The couple had built a life together, running a thriving Italian restaurant, Fernando's Pizza and Takeaway, in Cape Town. The restaurant had weathered challenges, even surviving the COVID pandemic. With their business stable and thriving again, they had finally taken time to relax and recharge. Their destination was the luxurious Beacon Island Hotel, nestled on the scenic garden route. The hotel was surrounded by pristine sandy beaches, clear waters, and dramatic coastal scenery. On that September morning, the family left their hotel room just after 7 a.m., making their way to the sand before the beach filled up with other holiday goers. Luna played in the sand with Diego, while Kimon ventured into the water for a refreshing morning swim, savoring the peacefulness of the early hour. While Plettenberg Bay looked calm, it was also known for its history of shark encounters. Just a year before, a local man, Bruce Wolof, lost his life after a great white shark attacked him while swimming at a nearby sanctuary beach. Following this fatality, local officials closed beaches temporarily as multiple great white sharks had been sighted in the days surrounding the incident. These waters had seen other incidents, like the attack on surfer Dylan Reddering in 2015, which left him with severe leg injuries. Despite an expanded push for safety measures, tourists and locals continue to be drawn to Plettenberg Bay, charmed by its beauty, often unaware of the hidden risks that come with swimming in these wild waters. Further offshore, beneath the waves and beyond Kimmen's notice, a shadow was gliding along the shoreline. A 13-foot great white shark was patrolling the coast, its shape barely visible under the surface. The annual sardine run had ended only a month before, leaving many sharks lingering along the coast where prey had recently been plentiful. Though the water seemed calm, the shark was on the hunt. Kimmen waded waist-deep, close enough to see Luna and Diego playing on the shore. She was only a few yards from them, the water around her clear and shallow. A few other swimmers splashed nearby, enjoying the cool, calm sea. Then, without warning, the shark altered its course, now angling toward the shoreline. It spotted Kimmen in the shallows, her movements catching its attention. Hidden just beneath the water, the predator closed in silently, its powerful tail propelling it forward with terrifying precision. Then, in a split second, it struck. The great white surged forward, breaking through the arc of a wave. In one powerful motion, its massive jaws clamped down around Kimmen's waist, pulling her off her feet in an instant. The impact was like a force of nature, dragging her down with such strength that it left her defenseless. The water around her erupted in a frenzy of foam and blood as the shark thrashed, its jaws locked around her midsection. People on the beach stared, frozen, as they watched the water churn. Kimmen's body momentarily visible through splashes of red as the great white's tail slapped against the waves. Nearby swimmers screamed, scrambling toward the shore in a blind panic, each fearing the shark might turn on them next. Diego and Luna, only yards away, could do nothing but watch, stunned by the horrific sight unfolding just a few steps from where they stood. The shark's jaws had torn through muscle and arteries in a single devastating bite, leaving Kimmen motionless in the water, surrounded by a pool of blood. Her body, still in the shark's grasp, was tossed briefly above the surface as the predator circled before vanishing beneath the waves. The beach fell into silence as rescuers arrived, their lifeboats cutting through the red-stained waves. Onlookers, still processing the horror, could only watch, understanding the tragic finality as Kimmen's body was carefully lifted from the water. Diego held Luna close, their eyes fixed on the spot where their family had been shattered in an instant, realizing that Kimmen was dead. News of Kimmen's death spread quickly, reaching Cape Town and the community that knew her as a devoted mother, partner, and a beacon of kindness. She had a warm and caring nature, always putting others before herself. Each week, she volunteered at the OBS Pasta Kitchen, offering warm meals and a constant presence to those in need. To many, her compassion was a lifeline, her spirit one of rare generosity. In the days that followed, the waters at Plettenberg Bay grew calm again, but for Diego, Luna, and the friends she left behind, the waves would always carry the memory of her. Kimmen had entered the ocean in a moment of joy, in a place where she felt most alive. Now, the sea was both a beautiful memory of her spirit and a force that had taken her away without warning, changing everything in an instant. This attack once again proves that the ocean belongs to its rulers, the predators within, showing no mercy to anything in their path. Even if you're on the vacation of a lifetime hoping for a break from the hectic pace of daily life, the ocean's dangers don't take a holiday. For Lauren, a happily married woman seeking peace and escape, this harsh reality turned tragically real when her dream getaway ended in a merciless encounter with a shark. Lauren Van Wart, a 44-year-old math editor for Curriculum Associates, a Boston-based company creating educational resources for teachers, had finally escaped the winter chill of Boston with her husband Ernest. After months of busy work schedules and the routine demands of daily life, they had eagerly anticipated this vacation. In December 2023, the couple arrived at Sandals Royal Bahamas Resort on Cable Beach, a luxury destination known for its white sands and sparkling turquoise waters. The resort, nestled on New Providence Island, promised a week of tranquility and renewal. Married for 13 years, Lauren and Ernest were ready to unwind, soaking up the warm Caribbean sun in a place that felt like paradise. Back home in Boston, winter was settling in, bringing freezing temperatures and gray skies. But on the morning of December 4th, Lauren and Ernest enjoyed a leisurely breakfast before heading to the resort's beach. The sky was slightly overcast, with clouds drifting across the warm morning air. Temperatures hovered around a comfortable 77 degrees, perfect for a quiet paddleboarding session on the calm, inviting waters. Shark attacks are rare, with only about 10 fatalities worldwide each year. Yet the Bahamas, home to reef sharks, tiger sharks, and bull sharks, has long attracted thrill seekers to its shark-rich waters. Declared a shark sanctuary in 2011, these waters span over 243,000 square miles, making it one of the world's premier spots to encounter these powerful predators up close. While tourists flock here for its beauty and adventure, the line between paradise and danger remains razor thin, where even a routine swim can bring one face to face with nature's raw power. Despite the allure and occasional risks of these waters, Lauren and Ernest felt at ease. The Sandals Resort provided complimentary beach equipment, kayaks, snorkeling gear, and paddle boards for guests. The couple decided to take the paddle boards out into the bay, eager to enjoy the peace of the open water. With paddle in hand, each balanced on a board as they ventured farther from the shore. They moved easily across the calm water, each stroke sending them farther out toward the deep blue. Other guests still dotted the beach, visible behind them as they moved out to sea, the water around them deepening in color from bright turquoise to dark blue. Nearly 3/4 of a mile out, the pair reached an area behind the hotel, surrounded by the quiet vastness of the bay. Below the surface, a large shark patrolled the area. This particular stretch of ocean had become home to many marine creatures, from vibrant fish and coral to larger predators that occasionally drifted into the waters around the resort. The shark, moving with purpose, saw the paddle boards above and began to move upward, drawn by the paddle strokes dipping through the water, a motion that could easily resemble the flippers of a seal. In an instant, the shark struck. It torpedoed upward, smashing into the underside of Lauren's board and sending her sprawling into the water. Her paddle flew from her grip as she splashed, trying to reach the board, unsure of what had just happened. Ernest, only a few yards away, saw the massive shadow beneath her board just as the shark hit. He shouted her name, but the shark had already turned back for a second bite. Before Lauren could regain her footing, the shark returned, jaws wide. It clamped down on her side, its grip crushing and unyielding. The water around her churned as she struggled, the force of the bite powerful enough to keep her submerged. Ernest paddled toward her, shouting for help as the water began to froth and darken with blood. Lauren tried to fight back while the shark shook its head from side to side, thrashing her in its grip. She screamed, her voice piercing through the tumult of splashing water and the terrifying sound of the struggle. Back on the beach, other guests heard the screams echoing across the water. Faces turned toward the scene in shock, and soon the resort's lifeguard was rushing to the rescue boat, jumping aboard and firing up the engine. He sped across the bay, bouncing over waves as he closed in on the couple. When he arrived, the shadow of the shark loomed close by, still circling beneath the surface. The lifeguard reached over the side of the boat, grabbing Lauren's arm and pulling her from the water, then extended a hand for Ernest to climb aboard. Lauren's injuries were severe. Her right side and hip bore deep lacerations, and her right arm had been mauled in the attack. The damage was extensive, with muscles and blood vessels torn, and she had already lost a considerable amount of blood. The lifeguard steered the boat back toward shore, navigating the waters as quickly as he could. Ernest held Lauren, his face drained of color as he braced himself against the boat's rocking. Back at the beach, paramedics were waiting. They lifted Lauren onto a stretcher and rushed her to the hospital. Her injuries proved too great. Despite the efforts of her husband, the lifeguard, and the medical team, Lauren had already succumbed by the time they reached shore. News of the attack left the resort shaken. Guests who had watched the scene unfold from the beach were left speechless, stunned by the suddenness of the event. It was the kind of tragedy few could have imagined during an otherwise peaceful morning at the resort. The loss of Lauren echoed back to her community, where friends, colleagues, and neighbors grieved the shock of her passing. For her husband, Ernest, the loss was profound. He mourned not only his beloved wife, but also his best friend and partner of 13 years. Lauren was known for her kindness, her vibrant laugh, and the quiet strength she brought to those around her, a presence Ernest now felt deeply in her absence. Picture yourself on a Hawaiian beach on a beautiful Sunday morning. For 58-year-old Mike Morita, a seasoned surfer with over 40 years on the waves, Easter Sunday, April 2023, was the perfect day for his usual routine. Near Kewalo Basin off Honolulu's coast, Mike prepared for another surf, surrounded by the gentle hum of beachgoers. Known among friends and family as a devoted father of two and a lifelong ocean lover, he had spent decades navigating Hawaii's waters, finding peace and thrill in the waves that felt like home. Surfing wasn't just a pastime for Mike, it was a way of life, an essential part of his weekend rhythm. That morning, the beach was comfortably busy, its calm yet lively energy giving the water an air of both safety and excitement. The sunlight danced over the surface, casting patterns on the seabed as Mike paddled out. As he positioned himself, scanning the horizon for the perfect wave, everything seemed routine. In a single instant, his world shifted. As he caught a wave, an abrupt, powerful tug nearly threw him from his board. He tightened his grip, attempting to balance, but then felt a sharp, even stronger pull, jerking him off the board completely. Nearby surfers glanced over, startled as they saw Mike pulled beneath the surface. Mike disappeared underwater, now locked in a life-or-death struggle with a predator. A 7-foot tiger shark had latched onto his leg, and its powerful jaws held him fast, pulling him deeper. The water around them churned with movement as Mike kicked and punched, each strike stirring up bubbles and sand. Other surfers watched as the water around Mike grew turbulent, his legs thrashing and his arms striking against the creature. Still, no matter how much he struggled, the shark didn't release its grip. Just as he managed to break the surface for a moment, he gasped, taking in a mouthful of air before the shark dragged him down again. He barely had a chance to stay above water, and each time he resurfaced, it was only for a quick, desperate breath. His leg remained tightly caught in the shark's grip, and each kick seemed to make no difference. The nearby surfers kept their eyes fixed on the scene, the stillness of the ocean around them amplifying the violence unfolding just beneath the waves. With each attempt to pull himself away, Mike's movements grew more forceful. Underwater, he wrapped his arm around the shark's rough body, gripping it and squeezing it in a final effort to get free. The two twisted and turned in the water, a frenzied blend of limbs and fins. In the swirling struggle, the water grew murky with sand and blood, creating a cloud that obscured the view from the surface. Then, after a few more tense seconds, the shark finally released its grip and swam away. Mike shot to the surface, gasping and gulping in the fresh air. His face was pale, his body weakened from the fight, but he was free. As he floated in the water, catching his breath, he spotted the other surfers paddling quickly toward him. Within moments, they reached his side, pulling him up onto a nearby surfboard and positioning him securely. One surfer held the board still while the others began paddling toward shore, the group working together to get him to safety as fast as possible. As they moved forward, Mike motioned for them to stop. He looked down at his leg and saw the extent of the injury. A mangled, bloody wound with flesh torn open and blood flowing out into the water around him. The sight alone was enough to prompt immediate action. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, his friends quickly moved closer, and one of them reached for an ankle cord. Working together, they fashioned the cord into a makeshift tourniquet, tying it tightly above the wound to slow the bleeding. The cord was secured in place and the flow of blood visibly slowed, providing some relief in the tense situation. With the worst of the bleeding controlled, the group continued paddling, catching each wave to move faster toward the shore. Mike lay flat on the surfboard, his friends positioned around him, each one focused on the journey ahead. The water was calm, and though each bump and shift of the board sent a jolt through Mike's injured leg, the shore slowly drew closer. The surfers stayed focused, keeping an even pace as they guided the board toward shore, every stroke bringing them closer to safety. As they neared the beach, a small crowd began to gather, drawn by the sight of the surfers escorting Mike back to the shore. Onlookers quickly grasped the severity of the situation, some rushing to alert medical personnel while others moved closer, offering to help. Once they reached the sand, the surfers carefully lifted Mike from the board, carrying him onto dry ground. Emergency responders arrived and he was swiftly loaded into an ambulance. At the hospital, surgeons assessed Mike's injuries. Despite their extensive efforts to repair the damage, his foot could not be saved. The shark's grip had been too strong and the wounds were too severe. And yet, Mike had survived. His experience and the quick actions of his friends had given him a chance to fight through those desperate moments. Mike spoke from his hospital bed, recalling the intense moments of the attack. He described feeling the shark clamp down on his leg, saying, "I could just feel the strength and power of it." He fought hard, punching the shark repeatedly. But when that didn't work, he wrapped his arm and leg around its body, trying to find any weak point. When he finally struck the gills, the shark let go, he explained, crediting his survival to his quick instincts and determination. Reflecting on the rescue, Mike expressed deep gratitude for his friends, saying, "Thank God for my friends who saved my life. Their fast thinking with a tourniquet he knew had kept him from bleeding out." After 4 decades of surfing, Mike had always respected the ocean's power, but this experience had left him with an even deeper sense of awe and caution. In the following days, Mike's story became one of survival, a tale of teamwork and quick thinking under pressure. The surfers who had paddled to his side were credited with saving his life, their actions quick and their support stable in a moment of mayhem. Though he returned from the encounter changed, he remained grateful, a sign of the strength in both human instinct and friendship. Thank you for joining us for these intense shark attack stories. If this captivated you, you won't want to miss the next video, where diver Kazuta Harada's suit is torn apart by a powerful shark attack, and what happened next is even more terrifying. Click to watch and we'll see you there.